Snarky Puppy.
I'm Bill Laurance from Snarky Puppy.
And we're here today to do, with Ryan Storm of Storm Sound, to give you a little rig tour of what we're doing here on the road with Snarky. So, Bill, you want to go first? Bill, you go first.
Yeah, so this is Keyboard World. Welcome to Keyboard World. Previously, we would actually be in separate stations, and we realized there was so much crossover in what we were doing that it made more sense to just create one zone that we can kind of both access. Yeah, I mean, we kind of swap back and forth, but I spend a lot of time over here. So we got the Mellotron to start with, which is mostly for pads. And strings. So that's generally what the Mellotron's, that's kind of its happy place. And then I'm on the Nord a lot of the time, on the CP. So obviously we've got the Fender Rhodes too, but often we're either both playing Rhodes and CP at the same time, and you kind of get a nice blend of the sustain of the Rhodes and then a bit more attack on the CP. And then you've got like pianos and stuff. You know, I feel like Nord is my go-to for trying to kind of replicate a real acoustic piano. And then clav as well, but I mean, obviously Bobby's got his clav there with the whammy bar, so I don't play this often, but sometimes we put the bass line. And then just buzz synth as well. That's the kind of the sort of foundation keyboard. This is where I spend most of my time, and then obviously the little fatty for bass sounds and leads. You know. This is going through a MXR carbon copy, which we love, and is kind of all over the stage. Honestly, I'm not sure there's a musician on stage who doesn't have one of these. So it's good for kind of leads, but then it's also good for basses as well. That's it, man.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. So just to kind of go back quickly to Bill's setup, we'll just say it's Bill's setup, but obviously we're switching, is that we're sort of accessing the same sounds, but then we also have like different setups. So whenever I'm over here, I'm also using a CP70 sound, but I have like a different sort of preset going for that, and it's just slightly different effects, maybe a different reverb, maybe more compression, I'm not so sure, but it's just, you know, it's personal preference, so we're able to have our own things. And the same thing with the Fatty too. I have a sort of preset that my go-to where I can go and access that. Moving forward though, Fender Rhodes, I'd say this is like the meat and potatoes of the band, the keyboard section, and has been for quite some time. You know, like Bill said before, we're doing on the latest record, Empire Central, we've sort of like tapped into this sort of blending of the CP70 and the Rhodes for unison sort of chording stuff, and it's like been super nice. So that's like been a new texture, I think, for this record. But Rhodes has sort of been always like a sort of focal point, or like it's very supportive and like the starch in the cake, you know.
Play that the bet thing.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so this is the last section in the song Bet. and we're comping basically the same voicings together. All right. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the sustain pedal. It's always a funny thing about this. This might be getting too in the weeds, but this is actually originally a suitcase where it's been modded to use as a stage piano. So what that means is a suitcase piano normally has a cabinet with an amplifier that you run in, and the stage is the Rhodes sans a cabinet, and then you would run it either directly into the sound system or through an amplifier, which is what we're doing here with the Fender Twin. The struggle we're working with now is the sort of mechanism that controls the sustain is different between a suitcase and a stage piano. So there's like sort of workarounds that no one's quite solved the problem yet. So maybe that can be our little mission at some point.
Well, the Mark 8 is they've kind of designed the new Mark 8 Fender Rhodes is it's like the same mechanism as a Wurlitzer, so it's like a kind of more sort of wire rather than, and it's supposedly more reliable.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on. Here we have the sequential Prophet 6. We've been using that since it came out. Basically, I think we first used it on Culture Vulture. That's like right when it came out, and it's been great. I mean, still rocking it. It's great because sequential makes a ton of keyboards. Some of them are like digital analog. Some of them are purely analog. They just reissued the Prophet 5, which is like probably their most famous keyboard historically, used by everybody. But the Prophet 6 is all analog. You don't really have an LCD screen so much, so you don't have like menus to go through. So there's like dedicated knobs for everything that you're doing. So it's easy to sort of access and manipulate the sounds on the fly, which is great for live performance. Mm-hmm. So just to demonstrate a couple things that I have pulled up, some sort of go-tos like some pads. Something like that, you can roll the filter up easily, and then I will like manipulate the attack and release, and then all of a sudden it's instead of a pad, it's more of a, you can get more of this thing like I use that in Trinity. And then of course I roll the release off, then I have something a little bit sharper. You can kind of hear a little bit of reverb there, so I can easily. So there's that. It also has nice lead stuff. Sorry, that's a little loud. Stuff like that. There's a pretty kind of specific sound we use in RLs. If I can find it. Yeah. I'll double that on the Rhodes. It's just about like layers and textures of sounds, to kind of deepen the sonic palette, I guess. And then finally we have the little Model D Mini Moog here. And it sort of serves a similar purpose. It's monophonic, so it sort of serves the same purpose as the Fatty. Use it for bass stuff. Always convert it to lead. I also have this running through a mini carbon copy. So like the cool thing about the Moogs is like they all sort of function in the same way. I mean, they're all monophonic and they kind of have the same like architecture, but like the filters are all different, the oscillators and all this. So they all have different characters of sound. So it's nice having like the different options on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that's about it, right?
That's it, man. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask, like, you know, how, because obviously there's Bobby as well. He's got his clavinet and the Moog and the organ. So there's obviously 3 Moogs and, you know, 3 keyboard players. You know, I feel like a question we get asked a lot is like, how do you make space for one another? And I think, you know, ultimately that's something that's kind of evolved over time, and getting a sense of, you know, when a space needs to be filled, you know, and actually it's quite nice because it does sort of take the weight off a little bit if there's 3 of you, obviously, and so there's more room to kind of wait and leave space, but there's more inspirational going around, you know, so there's more ideas to kind of bounce off, and you know, I guess we've kind of established parts of who generally takes care of what compositional part, but like within that there is a degree of freedom as to how much we can kind of you know, find something new on that particular night. And if, you know, when as I say, when there's 3 of us, like there's all the, you know, there's new ideas all the time. So there's you know, I think the key is just inspiration, really. Everyone's like, it's an inspiring environment to be in, and it you know, you find yourself playing things you wouldn't have thought you would play as a result of being surrounded by these 2, you know. So it's like,
Yeah, and I would also say too, to just piggyback off what Bill said, that it's kind of thinking, it becomes thinking less like a keyboardist or like a musician, and more of like stepping outside and thinking like a producer. And I think that's the key to sort of like interacting in the ecosystem and not like taking up too much space. It's not about what am I going to play, what can I play on my instrument. It's about what serves the best purpose here, you know, like, and like I was thinking about it last night, actually. We were playing Bet, and it's like we can both like comp that rhythm together. We can do this unison comping thing. But sometimes it's cool to just let one person take it, and then like you just sort of like fill in gaps, and it gives it like, it gives lifts to certain areas, so it's not just so monochromatic, you know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. There's more room for contour, you know, because there's so many options. Or like on what's Bob's tune?
Coney Bear?
Coney Bear, yeah, which is like a funk groove where the Rhodes is kind of driving the bus for a lot of it, but then when we get to the solo section, it's like pass it over to, you know, a different keyboard to comp, so you get that character shift as opposed to everyone in all the time, and then, you know, then you get more contour, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Amazing.
Anything we missed that you want to hit?
I think you guys covered all of this. I just a question. You know, you talked about how you're now, you know, sharing a rig. How does that, you know, playing older songs that do happen sometimes, you know, that historically, if you guys were on the same stage, you were on opposite ends, or, you know, not playing the same keyboards. How does it feel now, and how do you kind of go about choosing who's going to play what for those songs?
Well, it's funny. Actually, we've been predominantly playing the new stuff, so it's been kind of a nice fit.
yeah. But it's true, when a new tune or when an old tune comes up, we'll both be like, what do you want to play?
Yeah, it can switch from night to night for sure. But I think sometimes we fall into things, and whatever feels right we do, and but we've managed to work out a system here in Monitor World where we have, when we switch, we kind of have our mixes go with us.
Oh, nice.
But then sort of favor the rig that we're on.
Yeah, it's quite. I was on in-ears for a bit, and actually in this setup, it kind of, I think because we're sort of sharing such a lot of space, and it made more sense to both be sort of hearing the stuff in the same kind of way. Like when I was on ears, it's like my interpretation of this space was so different to just. So it was like, yeah, it made sense to kind of just both be on wedges and and then just have to switch it.
All right, amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, you got it, dude.